that it's dropping out. So as long as you can hear me, that's good.
How can I help today?
Well, there were two things. The one was the question regarding our assignment for 542. Yeah, that one. And the other one, the email that you sent me about 500A. You wanted to have a chat about that, which okay. I'm not sure what you want to discuss about that, but
well, let's have a look at 500A first.
Okay.
Which will be very therapeutic because without your permission, I've pressed the record button, and I want to put this onto the Moodle for other people doing 500A.
Okay.
It's actually come to my attention. I'm currently doing a review of the manual.
Yes.
And lots and lots of reviews, lots of edits, which is all good. And basically, it just happened over the years. It's been partly updated and partly not. And it'll never be up to date because as soon as I press the save button, something else will happen. It's just one of those things.
Yep.
So going to, so you haven't been out on 500A yet?
No, I'm going 9th of October.
That's right. And yes, on page roughly 12, there's the table on what's what in 500A, and I would like to emphasize a few things from this table. And you go ahead and ask. You know, if you might agree with me, you might not agree with me, and you might want clarification. So shoot away. So if you're on the table, roughly page 12,
yes,
it says there in bold under day 1, some observation up to 1 day is permitted during this 10-day placement. Now, that's a newish demand from NESA a couple of years back, and they wanted me to put that in, so I did. And what that's basically saying is to counteract any understanding that the initial placement is primarily observation. It's not supposed to be primarily observation, but getting your hands dirty, as it were. But then that begs the question, what is teaching? Which is a huge discussion in its own right. And I would say up front, teaching is not you standing in front of 30 kids for 5 hours, talking to them. If you did that, I would fail you straight away. The kids would probably throw you out anyway. It's just not going to happen if you do that sort of thing. So teaching, to me, is facilitating student learning. And that's what it is. And it could be a one-on-one, it could be a group thing, it could be setting something up online, it could be talking to the whole class for 5 minutes. Yes, it could be all of those things. Going through some assignments, going through some feedback, all sorts of things. So don't put teaching in a box.
Okay.
And when I say observation, to me, when I think of observation, that's like the formal sitting at the back of the class and you, as if you're not there, and you're observing the behavior of kids, the behavior of the teacher, the behavior of the atmosphere, the behavior of the school culture. You're doing a research thing in preparation for your OJ. It's not what initial teacher placement is all about. It's basically becoming part of a class community and throwing yourself in as much as you're permitted to, and it's going to vary from school to school. How long is a lesson? I'm never going to say it's so many hours because schools have different.
It's very difficult.
It's just crazy. And then there's, what about an excursion? What about this? What about that? So why bother trying to put in hours? At the bottom of that table, you've got the most important box in the whole manual, in my view. You've got to submit 2 self-evaluations. You can do more if you want, but 2 self-evaluations, which are Appendix H. And there you are reflecting on yourself for week 1, typically, and again, week 2. How well do you rate yourself on these criteria? The idea is for you and your mentor to compare notes, because your mentor will be filling in interim review J at the end. Now, if they say that you're coming out on outstandings, and I've just redone H to give it an outstanding column as well, because it wasn't consistent before. And if you rate yourself N's, not yet, and your mentor is saying you're outstanding, we've got a problem. You have a huge self-esteem, self-perception problem. You need help.
Yep.
Alternatively, if your mentor says you're N and you think you're outstanding, we've got problems. We need to talk seriously. The whole idea is that mentor and you are more or less the same.
Okay.
And the whole idea is you come out of A knowing what areas you need to focus on. These, having got my hands dirty, I need to work on classroom management. I need to work on planning a lesson. This is what I need to work on. That's the point. So you don't go away feeling, oh, deflated, I failed. No, it's the idea is to find out where you need to grow. Okay. And don't forget, it's only 1 credit point for 500A, 1 credit point, and the marks for 500A could be 0 to 4 if you fail, 5 if you pass, 6 or 7 if you get a credit or a satisfactory, 8 for a distinction, 9 and 10 for a high distinction.
Okay.
I don't tend to publish those, and that's why they're not in the manual. They're just my working figures.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's 500A. I seriously commend that table to you, and I'll mention maybe the attendance record. You fill that in. The whole point is you've contractually got to do 10 days. And if you're sick one of the days, then it's your responsibility to make it up and do a new day. So that form is simply an audit of your presence in the school. And should we ever get audited as a college, then I'll need to present that to the powers that be, that you've done your 10 days in such and such a school.
Okay.
So I think that's my preach for now on 500A. There is another thing I will point out. In the manual, there's a huge section, Appendix A, on the observational journal professional e-portfolio.
Yes.
That is an edited version of notes that Jenny Bickmore-Brown produced. And it does say in there from your textbook, but we don't have textbooks for Alpha Crucis. And apart from which, people will find it, I think, impossible to find that book. I think it's out of print. So unless you're fortunate to find one in a library somewhere, you're lucky.
I bought it on Gumtree.
Sorry?
I bought it on Gumtree.
Well, there you go. Congratulations.
That was the only way I could get hold of it. They sold nowhere else. But only because I thought we had to have it.
Yeah, I know. No, you don't.
But that's okay. Another book.
it's an amazing resource. It must be.
Yeah.
So that is to stimulate your thinking, because unless you're a reflective practitioner, you won't grow. You'll be just locked into, this is what I am and this is what I do. So you have to be a reflective practitioner, and that's what this is for, to open your eyes to stuff that are worth observing if you hadn't thought of it.
Okay.
Questions?
So Angeline, when will she get this new copy of yours, the revised version?
Good question. I'm anticipating finishing this week.
Okay.
So it'll be up on Moodle soft copy, all being well, end of the week. And I'm anticipating at this stage she'll be able to print some for mentors for next week.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. The other question I have, which relates more to, I suppose, 500B and 500C, but it could relate to 500A, is the scenario that the school knows, let's use me as an example, the school knows that I am majoring in the curriculum subjects of SOR, English, and geography. I have said to them I can just do one subject. If they come back to me and say, actually, we'd quite like you across two subjects because then it splits the workload between two teachers, and I say I'm happy with that, how does it affect the paperwork in terms of who completes what?
Yeah, it's I had this with another student. She was history and geography, and she had two mentors. So it only affects the paperwork insofar as, well, two points, I guess. The dollars for the school don't grow; they remain, sadly, and it's a government figure, 28 from memory, 28 something. I can't find it now, but it's there in the manual. So basically, if you've got two mentors, they'll have to negotiate a split.
Okay.
Which way does it go? And again, different schools have different setups. Some, the money from this goes, there's no money for A, the mentor for A, only B and C.
Yeah.
The work that the mentor has to do for A is minimal, really is minimal. Literally, they could probably do it in 15 minutes. But I hope they give you a lot more personal insight than 15 minutes. But in terms of paperwork, 15 minutes. So what was I saying? Yeah, so for B and C, if there's more than one mentor, split it, get them to negotiate that, and either the school put in a single claim form or the two put theirs in, and it's arranged separately.
Okay. And in terms of who completes the forms for B and C if it's split?
Well, you will be getting, for B and C, you'll be getting your mentor's evaluation of your lessons, and you simply submit both. But then you could argue, if the mentors are really pushed for time, you will only need 5 from each.
Okay.
But if you end up giving me 10 from each, that's fine.
Okay.
But when it comes to the final review form, get them to do the exercise together, or nominate a lead mentor.
Okay. Which is the final form? Which attachment number is that?
Well, there's for the minor, there's Appendix L, and they have to, the mentor has to mark across somewhere on this continuum, from not yet through to outstanding, and there's in each box there's 4.
Yep.
And there's a similar form for the major, and the mentors fill in a line, and then tertiary supervisor, me, on the basis of my observation and review of your documents, give across, and hopefully it's going to accord with theirs. And if it doesn't, then there's discussions to be had.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Jim. That's very clear.
I think the success of a placement revolves around the pre-service teacher getting the manual. That doesn't mean to say they can recite it chapter and verse, but they get it. And the whole point is to be prepared, to be there as a servant to the school, to be there on time and not to be clock watching, and not to have their mobile phone on, and not to be diverted, but be there, be present for the teacher and for the students. And every school has its own dynamics and stresses. So preparation by whatever means is oh, I was going to say the lesson plans. There is a template in here. You don't have to use this one. The first thing to ask to the mentor teachers is, which lesson plan would you like me to use? If they say, we don't bother, which I would cringe at if that's the case, then please do your own lesson plans. And keep them for all your placements, and stick them into your e-portfolio as a resource for the future. I had a great question this morning about lesson plans, and that was this. The school will obviously have units of work that they're working from. So you don't have to reinvent that. If you're asked to write a whole unit of work as part of your placement, let me know. That's totally unfair. It's never happened, but I suppose it could. So your job is to take the unit of work in whatever form it is, hard copy, soft copy, and create your own lessons for your days, which is going to be great fun. Awesome. But bear in mind, it's attention, because you're working on somebody else's work and it's not yours. And they've got resources that they'll know off by heart, and you don't. So you'll be tempted, well, yes, do bring in your own resources to support your understanding of the subject.
Yep. Okay, perfect. I'm excited.
As you should be. Anything else on 500? No,
I'm comfortable with it. Happy. I think the most important thing is reading through it. Only once I read through it, the whole manual, did it make sense to me. Before that, I didn't know what it was going on. So now I'm happy.
Good. Well, let me hit the stop button.